welcome guys to the webinar. My name is Ricky Shabazz. I'll be getting started in about 5 minutes or so, give or take. We want to let guys get on the webinar. I'm seeing guys are logging on right now. We will be taking questions. There should be a chat function that you can ask questions. Again, welcome to the webinar. Want to make sure everybody can hear me out there. If you can hear me out there, if you would respond on the chat that you can hear me. Again, welcome to the webinar. We will get started in about 5 minutes. Obviously, my name is not Shabazz Moore. He's my boss at Navionics. My name is Ricky Shabazz. So if you see Shabazz Moore's name, don't worry. This is Ricky Shabazz coming to you from California. We'll get started in a couple minutes. I want to thank everybody from attending the webinar. I see a couple people's name on there that I recognize. Appreciate you all being on the webinar. You all should be able to see the PowerPoint. We're primarily going to be talking about a PowerPoint. I'll be going off the PowerPoint at some point and actually showing you all how to rig some of these baits that we're going to be talking about today. Okay, great. It's about just about 5 minutes after. We're going to go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Ricky Shabazz. I'm coming to you all from the West Coast. Appreciate you all joining us on this webinar where we're going to be talking about the Neko Rig. Again, we'll start with a little bit of information about me. I'm a West Coast tournament angler, outdoor writer. I write for a couple outdoor magazines. I'm a marine specialist for Navionics. I do seminars all over the country, primarily in Bass Pro Shops. I do have a day job. I'm vice president at a community college, and blessed and honored to have some great sponsors, mainly Navionics, Lowrance. You see a list there. If you have any questions, these webinars are about education and making sure you all catch more fish. You're familiar with mapping and sonar charts and all of the information we're going to be going over today that are intended to help you while you're out on the water. If you ever have any questions, you have my email here. Again, it's rshabazz@navionics.com. You can visit my website at teamblingfishing.com, and you can friend me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My Facebook address is Ricky Shabazz. And before anyone asks me what kind of doctor I am a fake doctor. And today we're going to be talking fishing. And so we're going to be talking about the Neko Rig. Again, thank you for taking time to join the webinar. I'll be talking for about 20 to 30 minutes, and then I will be taking questions for 20 or 30 minutes. The webinar will be recorded. It'll be available via navionics.com in a couple of days. Everyone is muted. You should be able to see a prompt on your screen to ask questions. I'll take questions at the end of the presentation, and I will do my best to get to everyone. If I do not get to your question, my email address is going to be given at the end of the PowerPoint, but it's rshabazz@navionics.com. The topics that we'll be covering today is the Neko Rig. I'll be talking about the different baits and rigging. I'll be talking about the equipment that I use. I'll be talking about the technique in general. And certainly I'll be talking about locations and mapping and software and how to use the Navionics app on my phone and my iPad, and how to use the Navionics charts in my Lowrance, and talking about update cards for those of you who have older Navionics or competitor cards, how to get a $99 Navionics update card that is preloaded with some of the contours that I'm going to go over. Again, if anyone has a question, just click on chat, the chat button at the bottom of the screen at any time during the presentation. At the end of the presentation, I'll review that and answer as many questions as possible. And again, there is my email, rshabazz@navionics.com. So let's dive into the Neko Rig. And I love talking about the Neko Rig because I have won a lot of money on the Neko Rig, and I'm surprised at how many people are not familiar with the Neko Rig. The Neko Rig has a number of different names. It's called the Neko Rig, the Dick Rig, the Rig. This is a technique, a finesse technique that came out of Japan. And I was real fortunate. About 15 or 16 years ago, I actually had a chance, several chances, to fish with Hideki, who is the lure designer for a number of companies, but he started out with Reaction Innovations. He works with Bub Tosh now, while Hideki, as far as I'm concerned, is the father of the Hideki rig. But as I understand it, a number of Japanese anglers use this technique. But I was taught by who I consider to be the best Neko Rig rigger, Hideki. If you go into my Facebook, you can actually friend Hideki, who is a Japanese lure designer. He routinely comes to California and fishes tournaments, and he fishes tournaments all over the country. Simply put, the Neko Rig, as you see it, consists of putting some kind of plastic worm and putting some kind of nail or lead inside of the plastic, or as you see right here, this is a Boss weight that has a spring load that the spring is used to go in to the head of the plastic worm. This is an alternative to drop shotting. This is an alternative to Texas rigging. And what you do is you rig the bait wacky style, which is somewhere in the middle of the bait. You see a O-ring, you see a 1/0 Gamakatsu hook. There's the Boss weight. There's a shrink wrap. The shrink, and I'm going to talk about the advantages of the shrink wrap. The wacky rig, or the rig, will and does outfish drop shot, particularly in 0 to 25. This is an alternative to throwing a Cinco. This is an alternative to throwing a Cinco weightless. This is an alternative to throwing a drop shot. This rig will absolutely catch pressure fish. It will absolutely catch big fish. And in terms of this particular bait, this is a Zoom trick worm. You can use whatever your favorite plastic worm is. I'm going to show some examples of that. Again, the shrink tube, just get it from Lowe's, Home Depot. The benefit of the shrink tube is you get to get more uses out of your plastic worm, but it also helps the hook be a little bit more weedless. And early on, when I was using this rig, we would find that the every now and then the plastic worm would rotate back over the hook and you would lose fish. The shrink wrap prevents and ultimately reduces that from happening. Again, this is a 3/16 Voss screw rate. You can get most of this stuff I'm going to talk about today from Tackle Warehouse, your local tackle store, wherever you like to shop. So let's talk about baits and rigging. You insert a weight in the head of the plastic worm, creature bait, stick bait, Cincos. I use this Neko Rig in brush hogs, robo worms, either a 4.5 or 6-inch, slim Cincos, minnow baits, 4-inch Cincos, jackal flick shapes. I typically, as you see, stick to natural colors, your green pumpkins. Certainly that pink worm is not a natural color, but that pink worm catches fish all over the country. But essentially what you can do is take whatever your favorite drop shot bait is, and this is a different technique. The drop shot, the worm is over the weight and is off the ground or off the bottom of the lake. The Neko Rig, the worm is actually on the bottom, and we're going to talk about how we fish those things. So those are some of the baits, and you can get all these baits at your local tackle store. There are no secret baits. It's the technique that stands out. So here's some additional baits. Again, I primarily use a Gamakatsu 1/0 drop shot hook. That's the hook over the years that I've come to use. I've tried other hooks. I've tried weedless hooks. This is the hook that I use 100% of the time. These are some of the baits that I use. Again, a Yamamoto Cinco, Slim Cinco, Zoom finesse worms. That's your traditional nail weight. And I get a lot of questions about the nail weight that I use. I use a regular Lunker City nail weight. I lose too many baits and I throw this bait in areas that I do not want to spend the price of buying some tungsten weights, and that's an O-ring. For your larger baits, I'll use an O-ring. For the smaller baits, I'll use shrink wrap. So again, rigging. Again, there's that Lunker lure nail weight. I'm going to show you toward the end of the webinar how I rig that nail weight. I'm going to rig a bait for you. 99.9% of the time, the size weight I use is a 3/32. I primarily fish this rig on 6 to 10 pound fluorocarbon line. A lot of times I'll use a braided line connected to the fluoro using what's known as a uni to uni knot. You can Google uni to uni knot. There's a lot of other knots, blood knot. There's a lot of ways to connect braid to fluoro. I use an improved clinch knot on the hook. That's how I connect to 6 pound or 10 pound fluoro. There are times that I only use fluoro, particularly if I'm fishing around wood or docks. And what I've found, if I'm skipping this bait in docks, the braid floats and will cause the bait to glide and I get hung up more. So when I'm around wood and docks, I use straight fluoro. I don't use the braid to fluoro. This technique is different. It catches highly pressured fish. It catches fish that are conditioned to a drop shot. In terms of the braid, I do use Daiwa braid. There are a lot of great braids out here. I'm not, again, this is about education. I'm not here necessarily pushing a particular product. I do use Daiwa braid. I am sponsored by Daiwa, but there's a lot of great braids on the market. I primarily use Cigar. You see Torre there. There's a lot of great fluorocarbons. Just make sure you use a high quality braid and a high quality fluorocarbon. For myself, I use Daiwa braid and I use Cigar, Invenzex line. Torre makes a good fluorocarbon. Sunlight makes a good fluorocarbon. So let's talk about why the shrink tubing in the O-rings. Again, this is a picture that you should be able to see of that shrink tubing, and you see how that hook just stands straight up. That keeps it a little bit more weedless. That keeps the plastic from rotating back onto the hook. If you're not using a shrink tube or an O-ring for this technique, you are increasing the chances that your bait will rotate back over the hook and you will lose fish. Take it from me. It's taken, I've been fishing this technique for about 12 or 13 years, and I'd like to think that I've perfected it. I've won a ton of money on it. I've won a ton of team tournaments on it. I've placed high in the FLW using this technique. Don't reinvent the wheel. Please use a shrink tube or an O-ring. I typically pre-rig 30 to 40 baits because you will lose them in the places that I'm throwing it, but it's fairly weedless, but you do lose baits. I always have my baits marinating in the bag with some kind of fish attractant. I like to use a combination of Bang and Smelly Jelly, and I'll show you what my bag looks like in that information toward the end. Again, this is the Voss weight. I alternate between the Voss weight and a traditional nail weight. And again, there's your shrink tube. You can use clear shrink tube. I just use black shrink tube that you get out of the electrical section, Lowe's or Home Depot. So let's talk about the equipment. Again, I'm sponsored by Daiwa. That's what I use. There are a lot of great rod and reel companies on the market. I use a 7-foot medium light Steez, what is known as a Dropshot rod. You want a rod that has a very sensitive tip, but a little bit of backbone. You want a spinning reel. I use a Daiwa Ballistic. Again, there's a lot of great equipment on the market. This is not about pushing a particular brand. This is just what I use. What you want is a light, sensitive rod with some backbone. You want a size 25 reel where you can have a lot of line on your reel because you are going to break off, right? You're throwing this as an open hook and you're going to break off. That's why I pre-rig 30 or 40 of these baits, and I get hung up, I break it off, I retie. There are times that in a tournament or when I'm fishing, I typically have 2 of these rigged up. And in terms of line size, I use 6 pound for deep, clear, or highly pressured fish. So if I'm on a place like Pleasant or Mead, Shasta, lakes that are highly pressured, I'm going to use 6 pound tests. If I'm on a place like the California Delta or Clear Lake where I have a chance of catching a 10 pounder, and I have caught 10 pounders on this, I'm primarily going to use either 8 or 10 pound tests. I'm not going to go hunting for an elephant with a BB gun. I will not ever use 6 pound on the Delta or Clear Lake or around grass or wood. I'm going to primarily go 8 to 10 pound tests. I do catch big fish on this technique. And here's a shot of a 9 pounder this past fall that I caught during the FLW tournament. That's almost a 10 pounder big fish of the tournament that I caught on a Zoom finesse worm using the Neko Rig. And again, the Neko Rig is best 0 to 25 feet. And I say 25 feet because deeper than 25 feet, I lose feel and bottom contact. And it's important to keep this bait on the bottom. The bait has to be on the bottom. You're not fishing for suspended fish. You're fishing for fish that see an easy meal. And the reason why they think it's an easy meal is because I'm fishing it one of 3 ways. I'm either dead sticking the bait. And by dead sticking, I mean casting out there, letting the bait go to the ground, letting it settle, and not doing anything. And you'd be surprised at how many times I'll lift up my rod and then that fish is on there. Half of the time when I'm fishing this technique, the fish eat it on the fall. So you got to pay attention. Got to be aware. You got to use good tackle so you can know that you're actually getting a bite. Dead sticking, casting it out there, just letting it go to the bottom and stay there 30 seconds, a minute at a time. The shake, throwing it out there again, letting it fall to the bottom and shaking your rod. And I shake a lot. It was funny. I was fishing at Lake Pleasant. I was catching fish on this bait, and guys thought I was hung up because I was shaking my rod so much, vigorously, just shaking it. And it's called a slack line shake. So you throw it out there, and on slack line, you just reel up your tension just a little bit, and you shake your bait, right? Until you out of position. Then you shake, you reel up the slack, and you shake again. And so if I had a rod in my hand, what I would do is I would be shaking my rod until I had a lot of slack in my line, and then I'd reel down to about 6 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and then I'd shake back up to noon. Reel down to about 3 o'clock, shake back up to noon. And the fish will just pick up the bait and just take off. A lot of times on this bait, you don't feel the bite. Your line just swims off. And then the last technique is the drag. And just like it sounds, you'll throw it out there. You'll let the bait hit the bottom because, again, bottom contact is key to this bait and this technique. And you just drag the bait. Drag it into the strike zone. Drag it over a rock pile. Drag it into whatever. And you let the fish tell you what they want, because sometimes they want it dead stick. Sometimes they want it shaken. Sometimes they want it dragged. Or sometimes it'll be a combination. I'll drag, shake, dead stick. Drag, shake, dead stick. And it's really figuring out that pattern, almost like a topwater bait, but this is on the bottom of what the fish want. A lot of the strikes are on the fall. This technique works year round. You keep your rod high because that fish will swim off and you need to pick up the slack, right? And you reel set. You don't set with this. You're using light line. You could have a 9-pounder on the end of your line. You reel set. The fish will eat this bait. It's an open hook. You don't need to set the hook like you're flipping or anything like that. This is a big fish technique and it catches highly pressured bass. Let's talk locations. I like to fish a lot of channel swings and humps. And again, this is where the mapping software is going to come into play. A lot of people out there have a Navionics chip for their, or Navionics chart for their fish finder. I find these spots either using my electronics in my boat, or I find these spots using the Navionics app that I have on my phone. There is an app that you can download from the Apple Store or the Android store. And I have this app on my phone that I'm able to find these kind of spots. And again, this is an example of a channel swing and a hump. Most of the lakes out west are low, so even though you see 90 feet, this peaks out in about 20 feet, and you're using your electronics to find the fish. This fish was a part of a winning bag, so close to a 6-pounder big fish of the tournament. This is Castaic Lake. You see behind me how low the lake is. This is that exact spot here, right? This is the spot that I found on my Navionics app and then found it again using the Navionics chart in my fish finder. This is what that spot looks like on the water. It's a channel swing with a hump. That's close to a 6-pounder, part of a winning weight of an Anglers Marine team tournament. That fish caught using a Zoom finesse worm in the rig. And the interesting thing, we were the 3rd boat to fish this spot. Most guys were drop shotting. Most guys were fishing on top of the hump. By the time we got our chance to come to the spot, we caught 20 fish off of that spot, and other anglers weren't getting bit. Bass get conditioned to lures. If you're only fishing a drop shot in that 0 to 25 range, this bait will almost always outfish a drop shot. Almost always, because everybody's drop shotting. Again, this is another shot. This is a screenshot of my actual Lowrance of that spot. There's a GPS marker, channel swing. Of course, you see the GPS trails. Here's another good spot to use this technique. It's a point, underwater humps with a channel swing. Again, you find these spots. There's a saying that 90% of the fish live in 10% of the water. If you're not using this technology, whether it be mapping software in your units or on your phone or your tablet, you're missing out on spots like this. So let's talk about the setup. These are just pictures. Humminbird makes a good unit. Garmin makes a good unit. I use Lowrance. It's all part of the setup in terms of being able to catch these fish, in terms of how your electronics are set up. Here's a shot of my Lowrance HDS 12 connect via Bluetooth or wirelessly to my iPad, and you see my phone with the Navionics app, and I'm out there, and you see on the top right of the screen a break, right? And there's the fish, bait, fish. This is a great spot to fish the Neko Rig. I'd fish that Neko Rig right in that area right there. And it's important that you know how to read maps and that you have the freshest data on contours and information that guys like myself are uploading into Navionics that is updated live in the app for your phone. If you have a chip, you need to update that periodically. The first year you get to update it for a year for free. After that, it'll cost you $99. Now, I can't tell you how many anglers bought a Navionics chart or chip 5 years ago, 10 years ago, have never updated it. Navionics has a program that allows you to purchase an update card for $99, and it allows you to use the information off of your old card to get that update card. And it also allows you to use a competitor card to purchase an update card at $99 so that you're not having to spend the entire $199 that it costs for a Navionics Plus card or a Platinum card. Again, this is my contact information. That is the PowerPoint. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to start taking some questions, but I'm also going to show you all how to rig this. But let me dive into some questions. Are there any questions? And again, the questions are asked via the chat. Great question, David. Do you use a 3/32 for the boss weight too? The boss weight is going to come in different sizes than the nail weight. You all should be able to, let me see if I can. You all should be able to see this weight. This, let me show you. So this is the Lunker lure. The Lunker lure comes in a different size as a and you said Voss. It's actually a Voss, VOSS weight. And you get those at Tackle Warehouse or other stores. So here's a full 3/32 weight. I actually use about 3/4 of it, right? So here's a Zoom finesse worm, green pumpkin. What I would do is take a full weight. And this is another reason why I don't use tungsten, because I got a system already with this Lunker lure that I just know how I want it. So I'll push the Lunker lure about 3/4 in, and I'll take that off. And here's the part that I won't use, and then the rest of it is in the worm, right? And you can already see by me just shaking that worm, that's what the shake does. The other thing, here's some shrink tube. Again, just you get the shrink tube from Lowe's. Let me make sure everybody can see me. So that's how I rig the bait. The other question, great, everybody can see me. What about dirty water? I use this technique works 0 to 25, clear, dirty, stained. The fish are not used to seeing this technique, so it absolutely works in any condition. It works all over the country. I fished from Florida to the Great Lakes, West Coast, Central. This technique works. It is a different technique that the fish are not using. I believe that this technique will also outfish a shaky head under the right conditions. Now, there are conditions where shaky head is a better technique than this. Highly pressured bass will absolutely eat this bait. Big bass. I have caught 10 and 11 pound bass on a little 4-inch Zoom finesse worm rigged this way. Let me show you a picture of the hook. So here is the question. How much is the Navionics app? The Navionics app is $10 for your phone, and it is $20 for your tablet. In terms of the app, there is a government or a free app, but that free app will not give you contours. So the app that you want is the boating app, right? And I don't know if you all can see that, but if you go to navionics.com, you could actually see it. But the app that you want is the boating app. And so it is $10 for your phone. It is $20 for your tablet. There is a free app, but it won't give you the contours or the sonar charts, which is the level of detail that you saw in the PowerPoint today. For that level of detail that you saw in the PowerPoint, you're going to need one of three things, really one of four. You're either going to need the $10 app on your phone, You're going to need the $20 app on your tablet. You're going to need a Navionics Plus card, or you're going to need a Navionics Platinum card. Both the Navionics Plus card and the Navionics Platinum card are both preloaded. The difference is, or one of the differences, the Navionics Platinum card is going to give you that Google Earth overlay, basically the satellite images. The Navionics Plus card is going to allow you, will not have the satellite overlay, but it'll allow you to upload and download different regions. So as someone who fishes all over the country, I primarily use the Navionics Plus cards because I can download and upload a region based on where I am in the country. Why such light line on the Delta? Are you tossing this bait next to tulies or in open water? I am fishing this bait everywhere, from 0 to 25. If there are trees, if there are docks, if there are tulies. We just finished, my team partner and I finished second at El Capitan, which is a lake near San Diego. We were fishing this technique, and we were actually catching fish out of tulies. This technique is not an open water technique. When I'm using the shrink wrap or the O-rings, I can make the bait fairly weedless. You are going to get hung up. That's why I pre-rig 30 or 40 of these before I go out. I use such light line because you want to get the most action out of that bait. And the heavier line you get or you use, you start to lose action in that bait. And I mentioned that most of the bass bite on the fall. And so this bait will glide with this weight in it. And that bass will bite that bait on the flaw because it's gliding. With that heavier line, it won't sink, or it'll sink slower. With that light line, they'll see this bait coming into the strike zone and they'll eat it on the fall. Other questions? Is the Navionics update card preloaded? Yes, both the Navionics update card is preloaded, the Navionics Plus card is preloaded, and the Navionics Platinum card is preloaded. If the benefit of the updates card and the Navionics Plus card is you can update and download regions, but yes, they are all preloaded. In terms of needing to be activated for the Navionics update card, you're going to either need an old Navionics card or you're going to need a competitor card to activate that Navionics updates card. And again, the benefit of the Navionics update card is that you're paying $99 versus $199. And so there are some differences. All of those differences are listed on the Navionics website, but you can also email me at rshabazz@navionics.com if you have questions. I do get a lot of questions about the different cards and which one is the best. You know, again, it's a benefit for those of you who have older cards to get an update card. There is an abundance of data that has been uploaded and available now versus if you have a card that is 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I can't tell you the differences in the data and the contours and the information that's available now compared to 5 or 6 years ago. And a lot of guys would benefit from updating their cards. Just got a new Triton with HD's 9s. Is there a Navionics card that you can shade water depths and adjust water level? Yes, that is the benefit, Steve, to running a Navionics card in a Lowrance. It's called auto depth range, and you can adjust the max depth or the minimum depth. And in our lakes that are very low out west, if you're fishing reservoirs that have drawdowns, that allows you to adjust the shading on your Lowrance using your Navionics card. It's called auto depth range, or max depth range. Actually, it's called max depth range. If you friend me on Facebook, you can see a video that I've done. You can also see videos on the Navionics YouTube channel about how to do max depth range on a Lowrance using a Navionics card. So that is a great question, Steve. You absolutely can absolutely adjust the shading on your Lowrance using a Navionics card. I've heard that there are 20,000 changes to the card every week. Is that true? There are guys like myself and the engineers at Navionics are updating data on the lakes and the ocean, because don't forget the Navionics app and the Navionics card also cover the ocean. It really covers the world. There are different regions that you can upload and download, and so absolutely there are thousands of changes, really daily, weekly, monthly. And so if you've got a card that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, you're missing out on that data. That's another benefit to the Navionics app for your phone or your tablet, as those updates are made, it's available live. When choosing a bait to use for the rig, do you prefer a worm or a bait that is buoyant? Great question. Buoyancy has no bearing on this technique, because I want the worm to be on the bottom, and as I'm shaking it, let me get that worm out again. As I'm shaking that worm, as you can see, I'm just holding it in the middle. Let's rig one. Get out a hook here. Oh, I just lost my hook. There we go. So if I take that worm and I rig it wacky style, you can already see the action on that bait. So it doesn't need to be a floating worm. It doesn't need to be buoyant. Just the fact of rigging that worm in the middle of the worm, or wacky style as we call it, right? That's what that's called, wacky style. That's going to already give it some action. Now let me grab the worm that actually has a weight in it. Grab the one, of course, that didn't have the nail weight in it. So now I rig that worm wacky style, and that worm's going to automatically stand up because of that nail when I'm shaking it. And what you're going to get is what you see. You're going to get that tail just going all over the place. What size heat shrink? There's a few different sizes, and that's going to be determined, Steve, on the size of your worm, right? And so the best thing to do, take a bunch of different size worms with you to the hardware store and determine what size to get. But I'll show you, I have different sizes based on the size of the worm. So this one right here is what I use on a 5-inch Seiko. This one right here is what I use on a Zoom finesse worm. And so unfortunately, Steve, they don't have sizes on them. You kind of just got to take your worms with you to the hardware store. Don't worry, the hardware guys won't be mad at you if you take out a bunch of worms and you're trying to see what size the shrink wrap is. One of the questions had to do with the web app. Talked a lot about buying a Navionics app or Navionics chart. It is absolutely free to see all the maps that are on the web app or the Navionics card by going to www.navionics.com and clicking on the web app. The web app allows you to go and look at the same lakes that are in the Navionics Plus or the Platinum card. And so you can start to look at and study for an upcoming tournament, or study for a fishing trip by going to navionics.com and looking at the web app. And so that is absolutely free to the public. It also allows you to gauge what maps are on the app or the Navionics card that you're going to buy. Sorry, I missed it. What type of size hook? I use a 1/0, but I use a 1/0 for 4-inch and 5-inch worms. I use a 2/0 for 5-inch Senkos or bigger baits. So I let the size of the bait dictate the size of the hook, but I primarily use this number 1/0 Gamakatsu hook for a Zoom finesse worm or a robo worm. If I'm using a 5-inch Senko, I go up to a size 2/0 hook. Is it a reel in hook set, or do you just let the bass hook itself? It's a reel set. So I mentioned that a lot of the bass bite on the fall. So you see your line tighten and you reel, right? It's an exposed hook, so you don't really need to set. The only time that I really set is when that fish is coming at me, because spinning reels are very slow. So I'm gonna reel and set. if the fish is coming at me. What you hope is the fish either runs away from you or runs to the side. And in those cases, Dennis, you just reel set. You reel, because again, that hook, if I was able to show you, that hook is actually exposed, right? That hook is exposed. So the fish is going to most likely hook itself. Steve, do you know if you can adjust water level on your PC web app? You can adjust the water level on the phone app and the tablet. You absolutely can adjust for water level or water height or water depth using the app for the phone and the app for the tablet. That function, Steve, is not built into the free web app, but it is built in to the Navionics app for your phone, your tablet, and or if you have a Lowrance or Hummingbird, you're able to do max depth range and adjust the shading accordingly for water level using your fish finder. Other questions, and again, this will be taped for those of you who came late. This is being recorded. You will have an opportunity to go back and look at it. It'll be posted in about a week or two to navionics.com. Other questions? When I use a creature bait, Kevin, I rig it just like I do. If I don't have one here, but if I had a, let's just say, a brush hog, I would use it the same way. I would put the nail in the head. I'd put some kind of O-ring or a shrink wrap, and I'd rig it just like a worm. And again, it's just a different way of presenting it. Again, branded hooks, Gamakatsu, there's a lot of good hooks out there. In terms of me, through trial and error, I have come to know and believe that the Gamakatsu Dropshot hook is the best hook for this technique. Other people use more round bend hooks. Here's another hook. I do not use this hook, but some people do. It's called a finesse weedless Gamakatsu hook. Let me get a good shot at that. This is another hook that some people use if they want to make it weedless. Let's get a good shot of that hook. That is a Gamakatsu 1/0 split shot hook, and that is what I use 99.9% of the time, and I do not rig this weedless. That's what I use. I'm curious about your marinating process for your baits. Here's a bag of Zoom trick worms. With a trick worm, I would use a size 2/0, not a 1/0. And I pretty much take my smelly jelly and my bang, and I simply put it in the bag and just let it stay in there. And I leave all my baits in the bag when it comes to this technique. And you might not be able to see it, but that bang and that smelly jelly basically goes into the plastic, and it's marinating that way. And that's how I have all of my baits that I use for this. Again, I typically pre-rig 30, 40 if I'm going out fishing, because I will lose them. I'll break them off because I am throwing these in the trees. I am throwing them underneath docks. I am going down the bank 0 to 25. This is the bait that I use primarily. I typically do not drop shot in that range. I typically am throwing the Neko Rig because it is different. Fish are conditioned to it. Yeah, no worries. This is a very simple technique, and it's a very simple discussion. The fact of the matter is this technique catches big ones, and it catches highly pressured fish, and it catches fish behind people. I can't tell you how many times I go behind people with this Neko Rig, favorite plastic worm with a nail weight in the head, and people are drop shotting, and those fish get conditioned to that. They see a bait presented a different way, it glides going down, and that fish bites it on the fall. What bait size would be the best to start for? I would get a bag of watermelon candy or green pumpkin candy, Zoom finesse worms, a bag of Lunker Lure 332nd nail weights. Go to Home Depot or Lowe's, get you some shrink wrap, a pack of one-eye Gamakatsu Dropshot hooks, some 6-pound fluorocarbon. I use Seagar, a good spinning rod and spinning reel. Right now is the time that this technique is working. Bass are starting to move into the shallows. I pick some places like points and cuts and go to work. This will absolutely catch fish. It will absolutely catch a lot of fish. It will absolutely outfish a drop shot 0 to 25. What about casting? Do you sidearm or just overhand cast? Steve, it really kind of depends. When I'm trying to get a long cast, I overhand. I skip this bait. You know, if I'm on a lake like Clear Lake, if I'm on a lake like Oroville where I can fish the docks, I will skip this into docks and let that bait, again, glide down into the strike zone. And so it really kind of depends, Steve. I do both overhand and I do sidearm and I skip the bait. Kevin, can I talk about how to get the shrink wrap on the bait? Yes. Really, the shrink wrap goes on the bait very easy. The hardest part about the shrink wrap is actually just cutting it. So here's a, hopefully everybody can see that. Here is a Slim Cinco. You can't even tell, but it actually has the shrink wrap on it. So here is the shrink wrap. Hopefully everybody can see that. It's very small. Let me get it real close. There's the shrink wrap. There's the worm, and it's already been cut, right? It's real thin. Everybody can see that. Very simply, Slim Cinco, rigging it the rig style. You see it right there, and you just literally slide it on. I do not light this. Some people do. I don't. I don't think there's a need to light it. I slide it down. Got my nail. Let me grab a nail right here. Take you through the rig. Thanks for asking that question, Kevin. So you got the shrink wrap on there. You can't see it. It's almost hidden, right? It's on there, though. There's my 332nd Lunker Lure nail weight. Enter it inside. Again, I like to use 3/4 of the weight. Don't ask me why. I just come to that. I don't use the whole weight. Right? There's the piece I break off. I'm ready to go fishing. All right. Let me grab the hook. One-eye Gamakatsu drop shot hook. Insert it in the shrink wrap, and that's the rig. Right? There's my nail. There's my hook. There's the shrink wrap. And again, you can see that that hook is in place that tends to prevent that worm from rotating back over. When you don't use that shrink wrap or an O-ring, not using shrink wrap or O-ring will cause that bait to rotate back over. Does the width of the shrink wrap matter? Absolutely not. On the smaller baits like this, I tend to try to keep the shrink wrap real small because, as you can see, you can't see it. On baits like a Cinco, I'll keep the width a little bit wider. But no, the shrink wrap doesn't matter. But you don't want it too thick. I don't want to mess up the action of the worm, and I don't want the fish to see the shrink wrap.
Hey, Ricky?
Yes.
I think there's some questions that are coming through that you may not be seeing. So I'm going to read some of those questions to you.
Okay.
All right. Hang on one sec. Let's see. From Kevin, do you use floating type baits or does the bait matter?
Yeah, so no, I don't use floating type baits. Bait doesn't matter. Whatever your favorite color or style of drop shot bait will absolutely work for the rig. Cincos, robo worms, the baits that you traditionally would drop shot would also make a great Neko Rig bait. And so no, you don't need to have a floating worm, because again, as you can see, this bait is going to stand up when it hits the water because of the wacky style.
Cool. So another question from Kevin: do you use a lighter to secure the shrink tubing to the worm?
No, some guys do. I don't. I don't think it's necessary. Didn't use a lighter. You can see how in place that is. Periodically, you will cast it off, but that's why I rig up 30 to 40 baits at a time.
Now, you may have already answered this already, Ricky, but Michael said he came in a little bit late. Can you please go over the shrink tube procedure again?
Yeah, so you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever your favorite hardware store is. You get different sizes of shrink wrap based on the size of the bait. So here's the size that I use. Again, they don't have the size on there. You just got to go to the electrical section. They got different sizes. And you take you a piece of scissors, you take you a pair of scissors, and you just cut it into strips. And what you wind up with, hopefully folks can see that. I don't know how close, my screen is small, so I don't know how close I'm getting to the screen, but that's what it looks like. And you take a worm and you literally just thread it through. It's a very easy technique to use, and what you wind up with is that.
Okay, got another question from Ron Knight. Is there a prime season, or is this year-round evenly?
Absolutely year-round. Anytime the fish are in 0 to 25 feet of water, this is going to work, and this is going to put fish in the boat. It's very important, though, again, to me, more than season is the contours, the mapping, and that's really where the Navionics come into this, where the Navionics app for your phone, where the Navionics charts or chips that I'm using in my fish finder is very important to know what's underneath the water. Am I fishing rock? Am I fishing trees? Am I fishing a hump? Am I fishing a point? That's what's more important than it is the time of year. And the only way you can access that data is having the information from Navionics. We lead the industry in mapping software. I want to know what's underneath the water, so when I throw this bait, I know what I'm fishing it in.
From Terry, any differences in rigging if you want to skip the bait?
No, absolutely not. However, sometimes what I will do is if I'm fishing in real heavy cover, I will put the hook into the plastic and not pull it out. But I advise you not to do that because you will increase your chances of losing fish. So every now and then, if I'm getting hung up like every other cast, then I'm going to keep the point of the hook in the plastic, and that'll make this weedless. But I would say that very rarely happens. You'd have to be really fishing some snags. Otherwise, I'm going to fish it just like that.
And then the last question came in from Steve. What weight Voss sinker do you use? As I don't see a 332nd listed at Tackle Warehouse.
Yeah, let me go to Tackle Warehouse real quick. And show you all what Voss weight I use, because the Voss weights are in a different size than so the Voss weight that I primarily use is the 3/16. And of course they're out because everybody's throwing a Neko Rig right now. So let me see if I can share the screen real quick. There we go. So everybody should be able to see the Tackle Warehouse screen. This is the Voss weight, and I'm not here promoting Tackle Warehouse. You can buy these wherever you want, but this is the Voss weight. It's a good look at the Voss weight. It's VOSS, not Boss as in BOSS. It's a Voss. It's a company out of California. They make a lead weight that has a spring in it. And as you saw in the PowerPoint, if you missed the PowerPoint, you'll be able to see the PowerPoint on navionics.com. But that spring, you thread it into the plastic. And I typically use the 3/4. You should be able to see it. You should be able to see the Tackle Warehouse screen, which shows the different size Voss weights. Steve, David, what flavor of smelly jelly? Crawl. I prefer crawl. I use this one, and I also use the crawl that's pink. So either crawfish or crawdad, same with the Bang crawfish. Again, for me, I catch fish not using fish attractant. I just think that the fish attractant is an added benefit. You don't actually have to use it. It's a preference. I do have my baits marinating in fish attractant. Steve, they do sell variety pack, a shrink wrap. Is the new Lowrance 3D transducer worth the money? I believe the 3D transducer is worth the money, but just having structure scan is a major advance and benefit over 2D transducer. The structure scan will show you whether you're driving over a rock, a tree, a boat, a house. You can't get that kind of bottom separation with a 2D traditional sonar. Kevin, is there a certain way to put the hook on the bait? For example, open end hook or up or down? No, Kevin. You literally just slide the hook through the O-ring or the shrink wrap. Doesn't matter how you do it. You just put the hook inside the shrink wrap or the O-ring. So it doesn't matter if it's up or it's down. It's really going to have the same effect. The key is the nail, the light line, and the shaking. That's the key to this technique, as you can see. Guys, it's been great. If I did not get to your question, feel free to email me at rshabazz@navionics.com. Appreciate it. There are other webinars that Navionics is putting on. Yes, Kevin, I will see you tomorrow night at the Castaic Bass Club. Look forward to speaking to the Castaic Bass Club. If you are a Bass Club member or like to have me speak at your Bass Club, and you are in the Southern California, Arizona, Nevada region, I would love to come out and talk to your Bass Club about the benefits of Navionics and how we find 90% of the fish that live in 10% of the water. Again, thank you all. This will be or is being recorded. It'll be uploaded onto the Navionics website in about a week or so. Please visit navionics.com to learn more about the products, but also learn more about the webinars. This is about helping you catch more fish, learning what's underneath the water, and you will absolutely be able to catch more fish with these techniques and the techniques that are being discussed by the other pro staff at Navionics. Enjoy your night. Thank you all for coming. It's been great. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, rshabazz@navionics.com. Everybody have a great evening.